Chanel have had yet another price increase.
And you will not believe how much they are now.
In the last several years, Chanel's kind of been trying to get on that Hermes level because Hermes has created like a scarcity market.
And you cannot tell me that in 6 years, the cost of caviar leather has gone up $6,000. I don't believe it. I refuse to believe it.
Today we're going to talk about one of the most controversial topics in the luxury fashion world, and that is Chanel's price hikes. From the brand's humble beginnings to its position to one of the most iconic luxury houses in the world, we'll break down why Chanel keeps raising its prices and how it's impacted their customer base and what all of this means for the future of the brand. Before we dive into the price hikes, let's take a quick look at the history of Chanel. After all, understanding its legacy helps explain why the brand commands such a high price today. So Chanel was founded by Gabrielle Coco Chanel in 1910 in Paris, revolutionizing the fashion industry with her timeless designs. Her vision was to create clothing that liberated women from the confines of traditional fashion. Think relaxed chic styles like the little black dress, the Chanel suit, and the iconic Chanel No. 5 perfume. But it wasn't just clothing that defined Chanel's luxury empire, it was accessories, especially handbags. Chanel's most famous bag is the Chanel Classic Flap, and this was introduced in 1955 and quickly became a symbol of luxury and sophistication. Over the decades, Chanel positioned itself as a brand that represented timeless elegance, a symbol of exclusivity and high society. They've made sure to keep their offerings as desirable as ever, constantly releasing coveted items like the Boy bag and the Gabrielle bag. Chanel is famous for its innovative collections and unforgettable catwalk shows. So now I've given you guys some context. Let's get into the meat of today's topic, which is Chanel's price hikes. When did they start and why? So price hikes at Chanel didn't happen overnight. The first notable price increase came in the early 2000s. A classic flat bag, which was priced around $2,000 at the start of the century, slowly began creeping up year by year. By 2015, the classic flat bag had hit around $5,000, and by 2020, it crossed into the $7,000 mark. Fast forward to today, and in 2024, a Chanel classic flat bag can easily run you between $8,500 and $10,000, depending on the size and the material. I think if you have any interest or awareness of luxury fashion, then you will know that price hikes and Chanel go together, and Chanel is actually synonymous for their price hikes. And so I was really interested to find out what reasons they gave for all of these price hikes. So the brand has openly discussed the reasons behind these increases over the years, and they allege that they are far more strategic than just raising prices because they can. One of the first reasons relates to exclusivity. Chanel has consistently emphasized that it's all about maintaining the exclusive nature of their brand. They've openly said that part of the allure of owning a Chanel bag is knowing that not everyone can afford it. By increasing prices, they make sure that products remain highly coveted by a smaller, more elite group of customers.
On top of these price hikes, Chanel's trying to crack down on exclusivity. Chanel's starting to limit how many bags people can even buy, and by limiting supply while demand stays the same, they'll be able to justify that higher price.
Secondly, the rising cost of production. Chanel sources some of the world's most luxurious materials, using more expensive leathers and gold-plated hardware. As the cost of these materials rise, Chanel has to raise their prices to maintain the same level of quality. Now, this reason has been put to question by many Chanel customers. In one of my more recent videos around super fakes, I explained that some of the more modern day techniques that Chanel seems to be using to make some of their bags don't allegedly comply with what most people would say is a luxury standard. And so although this is one of the reasons that they do give for their price hiking, this is definitely one of the reasons that is more controversial. Chanel's strategy is also about value. I also spoke about value a bit in my video about whether luxury is dying or not, and perceived value. You know, value doesn't always have to be tangible, it can be intangible as well, and Chanel definitely leans on this concept. The brand has said that they want their bags to be seen as long-term investments. They believe that a Chanel bag, while expensive, will hold or even increase its value over time. In general terms, I would say that this is probably still true. If you look at the resale market, you will see loads of Chanel classic flat bags that are selling for equal to or more than their original price. There are plenty of vintage styles, especially more classic Chanel styles, that continue to hold their value, and many consumers are able to resell their bags many years later and make a sizable return on their investment. So how have the price hikes affected customer behavior and sales? Have these increases changed how people view the brand? Chanel's price hikes have had a significant impact on both consumer behavior and Chanel sales figures. On one hand, the brand has been able to attract more high net worth individuals and increase its exclusivity. The price increase has made their bags even more desirable. But on the other hand, many loyal customers have begun to feel the pressure. In fact, some have turned to the pre-owned market where they can find some Chanel bags for a fraction of the cost. Websites like Vestiaire Collective and The Real have seen a huge boom in Chanel resales, especially the classic designs like the flat bag and the boy bag. I have noticed that for Chanel in particular, there does seem to be quite a reliance on resale sites for a lot of consumers. Even here on YouTube, you'll see a lot of unboxings of Chanel bags, and there have been questions around whether the vintage Chanel bags are actually better quality than the newer ones. And so some customers are making an intentional decision to not buy newer Chanel and solely shop Chanel from resellers.
I've talked to a few people on my DMs here, just telling me their horror stories about how the pearls are coming off their new bag, how the leather is crunched up. It's just wild that the quality continues to diminish and their prices go up.
But does this mean that Chanel sales are suffering? Actually, quite the opposite. Despite the price hike, Chanel sales have continued to rise. In fact, Chanel's global sales revenue in 2023 surpassed 15 billion, up nearly 20% from the previous year. Chanel's strategy has worked in the sense that the brand has become more profitable and continues to see demand, especially in markets like Asia and North America. However, it's clear that while the brand is succeeding financially, it's walking a fine line between exclusivity and alienating potential customers. In the more recent years, I have seen lots of content creators talking about abandoning Chanel, not buying Chanel anymore, really thinking about why they would buy a classic flat bag when they could pick up a Birkin or a Kelly instead from Hermes. I think that Chanel has really tried to position themselves alongside Hermes, but don't necessarily have all of the qualities that Hermes have, even if some of those qualities are quite controversial. And so I definitely think their pricing strategy has isolated a certain subsection of the consumer base, and many customers are questioning why they would pay so much for a bag that is not increasing in physical value, as in the materials that they're using hasn't necessarily improved tons over the years.
I saw a comment on TikTok the other day which said that Chanel's quality has really gone down. Has it?
Yeah, I would say so.
Why?
So before 2008, the hardware on the bag was used with 24 karat gold, but now it's not.
How do I make sure the one I buy is good quality?
So you can tell whether it's real gold or not because it has a hallmark on the CC twist lock, and all of these that do have real gold are pre-2008. If you want to make sure that your Chanel bag is top quality, buy one from pre-2008.
So vintage.
Yeah.
So we all know that the Hermes Birkin is the pinnacle of luxury handbags, often fetching tens of thousands of dollars. In fact, the Birkin has become a status symbol in its own right, partly because of the scarcity and the waiting lists that are almost as legendary as the bags themselves. If you wanted to learn a bit more about Hermes and their marketing strategies, then do check out my video on why Hermes is thriving in the luxury slowdown. Chanel has made it no secret that they want to compete with Hermes. However, their approach is quite different. While Hermes relies on the rarity of the Birkin, keeping bags in limited quantities to increase demand, Chanel has gone for visibility combined with scarcity. In other words, they've kept their bags relatively accessible compared to Hermes, but at a much higher price than before. So is this strategy working? I definitely don't think it's working as well as they have intended. While Chanel bags are still sought after, they've struggled to replicate the same level of exclusivity that Hermes commands. Their price hikes have pushed them closer to Hermes in terms of price, but without the same scarcity model, they're not quite as exclusive. So let's shift gears a bit and give a bit more attention to one of the most controversial aspects of Chanel's price hikes, the quality. With the increase in prices, customers have started to notice changes in the quality of the bags.
We have been seeing a lot of quality problems coming from the house of Chanel. Like we're questioning, are things even made out of full leather anymore? Allegedly. We had the Chanel 22, we've seen hardware falling off, jewels missing from jewelry on their website. Like it's a problem. for the House of Chanel.
Chanel used to be known for its exceptional craftsmanship with bags made in France by skilled artisans. However, as demand has grown, some production has shifted to countries like Italy. Some consumers feel that the quality of the bags have declined. Customers have reported issues like uneven stitching, thinner leather, and even tarnished hardware straight out of the box.
So there's this very blurry made in Italy stamp. You can see it's like fading, and I was looking online and no other bag has a stamp in this. And then lastly, it's just the stitching is just, it's not amazing. Like, it's good, but it just like looks a little weird in some spots.
These quality concerns have left some buyers feeling that the bags no longer justify the astronomical price tag. So where does that leave Chanel? While the brand is undoubtedly one of the top players in luxury fashion, it's clear that Chanel are facing challenges. Chanel is doing its best to position itself as a competitor to Hermes, but some of the magic that once made it an aspirational brand might be slipping away. Will Chanel's strategy of price hikes, customer focus, and more accessible luxury continue to work? Or will they need to shift gears in order to maintain their elite status? I definitely think some strategy rethinking is going to have to take place at Chanel. I'm sure that they're aware of that and are probably on the job already and doing a bit of rethinking around their approach. I don't necessarily think the price hiking is going to be over. At this point, they're sisters, right? Like Chanel and price hikes, they go together. So I don't necessarily think that they will be changing that about their strategy, but I definitely think that they will be hopefully paying a bit more attention to the quality issues that customers have been reporting, because I'm sure that they don't want to Dior themselves.